you to say why you wanted to rear me as a black person and not a biracial person.
The world sees my family as black. The world sees interracial people as black. In order for you to survive with credibility and expertise, you need to understand that the world sees you as black, so you must get used to that definition because it's going to be carried with you wherever you go. When people see other people, the first thing they see is color.
Hey y'all, welcome to your live with Benita Osset, and this is Sip of Tea with B. Today we got Dr. Umarjohnson with us, hallelujah, and he is right here on the air. Hello to the people.
Peace and love, family. Shout out to the entire Chicago.
Thank you so much for being a part of our live broadcast. Right now we are, the reason for our show is a constructive response to racism. We are hoping and praying that one day everyone will be free. Today's show, of course, is sponsored by Benita's Homemade Things, and we got Benita and Moses in the building, and we have Dr. Umar live on the air. We want to just give him his piece. He is an awesome brother with a lot of very important information to share with us, and so we want to hear what he has to say. First, he's going to give some announcements of his next visit to Chicago. Go ahead, my brother.
Dr. Umarjohnson will be back in Chicago Tuesday, December the 26th, first day of Kwanzaa. We're going to start Kwanzaa off in Chicago Tuesday, December the 26th, 10 Cultural Center. Doors open up at 4. Lecture from 6 until 9. Book signing to follow. And then you get tickets at drumarjohnson.eventbrite.com. We're no longer using Eventbrite. It is now EventB. EVENTBEE, like a bumblebee. drumarjohnson.eventb.com. And I'm just looking forward to coming on back to Chicago. Always a great place to be. And it's also the city that's most responsible for my rise in the Black consciousness movement.
All right. Well, you know, since I first met you about 7 years ago, you have been all over the world talking and sharing with a lot of different people, your scholarship, your opinions, your thoughts, your objectives. And so one of the things that I'm wondering is if you have noticed it's changed at all for some of our people since you have been able to share, because I know, for instance, you have definitely had an influence on me personally. Listening to you talk, hearing what you have to say, I've definitely changed as a person, you know, being in your and around your atmosphere. But I'm wondering if you've noticed any of those different changes or any positives that you've found. Please share that with us.
I would say that if there were 3 things that I had to point out that I feel I've been blessed through my work to have affected in the community, I would say one thing would be that I've had a lot of Black women tell me that I've helped them raise their self-esteem, and more specifically, I was a prime motivator in a lot of them going natural. So as I travel the world, occasionally I'll get a sister who will come up to me and say, hey, here's the picture we took here, and now you see how I look now. And they'll say, you know, I just want you to know you're the reason that I went natural. You're the biggest influencer. So that's one of the pleasant blessings has brought about. Another, I would say that, and probably the most important, is that I've been able to be blessed to help a lot of parents save their children, whether it's the ADHD, the learning disability, the psychiatric med, the special ed, the expulsion, the alternative school, whatever the case may be. You know, I get emails probably almost daily. And I don't want to exaggerate the truth, but I would say I probably get at least an email a day. I don't get an email from a parent from some place on earth, mostly in the United States, telling me thank you because you've helped me. And to me, that's probably the most gratifying aspect of my work, to know that I'm going to check my email today and somebody on there is going to say, thank you because you existed. My life was made a little bit better. Be the most gratifying thing, because to be honest with you, and a lot of people may not know this, it can be very difficult doing this work, especially when you don't do it for money. And although every personality within the Black consciousness movement are clumped in together, truth of the matter is there's a lot of differences between us, especially when it comes to agenda, you know, and interests and why we're actually here, you know. And the truth of the matter is I don't do this work for the same reason other people do the work. You know, I genuinely am in this to make a difference, genuinely in this to make a difference. And so when money is not the issue, but people are constantly assuming that you're in this to make a dollar, it can get difficult. And there's been times in these 7 years since I've been international, but I would say in these 17 years, you know, since I've been speaking, that I wanted to give it up because I really didn't feel that the work was being appreciated. Even now, with the criticisms and things that come, even though, you know, the critics are just a small portion of the overall voice of our people, most of whom support my work, it still can be a lot on you at times. And it's just the people who say thank you. And that's really why I'm still doing this, because people are letting me know that I'm making a difference. Because if I didn't have that reassurance from the people that, you know, this is in fact helping, I don't know how much longer I would still be in the business.
All right, thanks so much. I have one person asking a question on Facebook. That's Brother Brian. He wants to know, he said, ask him why he still Africa
when it proven that the indigenous and all the Americans after the Civil War, only 5% of free men in a African ancestry.
Okay, so to repeat what Moses said, he wants to know why is it that you support the Back to Africa belief when it's proven that the indigenous and all the Americas after the Civil War, only 5% of the free men had a African ancestry?
Okay, first of all, I do not agree with that statistic, and it would be interesting to find out where they got that from. I agree with that statistic. Okay, I'm certain that more than 5% of the 4 million Africans who were quote unquote freed at the end of the Civil War, only 5% of them were African ancestry. I would like to know how that was determined, because I'm pretty certain that that is incorrect. Now, I do know, as we all do, that Africans were here before the white men got here. We're the first people on every continent. We know that. But where I disagree with people in the indigenous movement is that we come from Africa. It doesn't matter how early you got to America. Here in the 1400s, I don't care if you was here in the 1200s, I don't care if you was here BC, you came here through Africa. We are all African people. And so that's why I would disagree with people who would say because we got here before slavery, that means we're not Black. Because we got here before slavery, that means we're not African. I disagree with that line of thought. And I do think that there are some people who are descendants of Africans who were here before slavery, but you are still an African, regardless of how you got here and how long you've been here. There is no that could refute the fact that anthropologically and genealogically, all of us are of African descent. In fact, the Harvard Genome Project, which was completed several years ago, proved conclusively that all human beings on Earth share a common African ancestor. So for people to say that they're not African when there is no scientific evidence to support that fact, to me, is just another form of intellectual masturbation. Now, you know, for me in particular, and I think this is why it's so good to know your family history. This is why I think genealogy, which is something I'm going to be getting into in 2018 more, teaching people how to study their personal family history, is something that I've always wanted to do. I'm going to be getting into it even more going forward because we need to know our personal family history, because there's too many people running around the Black community giving people false notions of who they really are. And the only way to dispel these imaginary beliefs is for people to know exactly where they come from. So if you take me, for example, we happen to know our family history, particularly from my father's mother's lineage. So that's paternal grandma. That's the lineage through which I'm related to Frederick Douglass. Because we have that history, that our ancestors were not here before slavery. We know that they got off on the slave ships. We know that they were from Africa. So can't nobody come to me and tell me I was indigenous or sovereign or I was already in America, because I know I wasn't. And unfortunately, with a lot of these movements, they paid everybody with a broad brush. All of us were here before slavery. How do you know that? If you haven't done everyone's personal family history, how do you know that? But again, even if you were here before slavery, you got here from Africa.
All right, thanks a lot for elaborating on that comment. The other thing that I'm very, very much interested in hearing you share with the people is, we started this relationship with us both being working in the school system. And so I know you have a lot of resources in your head there, and I want you to share some ideas or concepts that key things that parents or teachers could know to help them better motivate young Black males or get them to do well in school.
Definitely. I would say, number one, in terms of parent techniques, I think parents need to be very firm, especially with our boys today, because not having discipline has become very popular. Children doing whatever they want to do, especially our boys, has become very popular. Not being excellent in school has become very popular. Not being respectful to Black women have become very popular. So I would say in the home, it's very important that Black parents raise Black children with principles, with lifelong principles. A lot of our children don't have any principles that they live for beyond religion. We give them a lot of Islam and we give them a lot of Christianity, but we don't give them principles, such as, if need be, you would give your life to save a Black woman. If need be, you would lay down your life for your own community. The principle of always being truthful, the principle of always being fair with other people, the principle of always being respectful towards elders. That is a lost cultural form in our community. And I think we need to start teaching our children the importance of principles and how critical principles will be towards your own success in life. You got to know what you live for. You got to know what you stand for. And you also have to know what you don't stand for. And you need to be unapologetic about it. Number two is homework. Homework is a dying breed in our community. A lot of schools don't even give out homework anymore. And I think Black parents really need to understand that if your child doesn't practice, they will not become perfect. If there's no practice, there's no perfection, which is ironic when you look at the history of Black parents who want their children placed in special ed, the historic numbers of Black parents who want their children diagnosed with ADHD. And it's like, you want them in special ed, you want them to get this extra help, but you got to recognize that you're the reason they're struggling in the first place. How dare you say he has a reading disability when you don't even make him practice his reading? How dare you say she has a math disability? You don't even help her practice her math. So I think we need to bring homework back to the Black family. It needs to be done every day, except maybe on the weekends. It needs to be consistently checked. And if the school doesn't give out homework, parents need to find out why. And they need to replace the homework that wasn't given by the school and by the parents. Number three, I think that parents need to make sure they spend a lot of time or enough time interacting with each of their children. Our children today suffer more than any previous generation from emotional neglect. Even when the parents are not incarcerated or divorced, you can have both parents living in the house, and our children are still suffering from emotional neglect because parents are pursuing their careers at the expense of their child's mental health. You have to take time out to be with your family. You have to take time out to be with your children. And I think the current generation of Black children are some of the most emotionally neglected Black people of all time. And with the advent of social network, it has made it even worse because we can all be in the house together, mom, dad, son, daughter, and no conversation is taking place. Son is watching videos on the television. Daughter is surfing the internet. Dad is on Facebook and mom is on YouTube. Literally an entire family that doesn't communicate because the telephone has replaced the family as the central medium of communication. And then after that, I would say that we need to embrace the reality that every parent is a homeschooling parent. Every Black parent is a homeschooling parent. I don't care if your child goes to the best school in Chicago. I don't care if they go to the worst school in Illinois. You must support the instruction at school, because no matter how good a teacher is, she cannot possibly, or he cannot possibly impart to your child all of the wisdom that was intended to be delivered on that particular day of instruction. They always say that there's 3 lessons. There's the lesson you intended to teach, there's the lesson you actually taught, and there's the lesson that was actually learned from the child. And because of that, because there's always a effort lost between what the teacher teaches and what the child learns, it is imperative that parents teach their children at home in addition to whatever is being given at school. And number 5, the last one, I would say, is that we have to teach our children that the best things in life are for free and that there's no price to be paid for them. I think this is very important because in addition to our children being the most emotionally neglected children probably of the past 50 years, our children today are also some of the most materialistic children of all time. So when you take emotional neglect and you pair that with material addiction, you get spiritual emptiness, you get psychological unhappiness. And I think that's the reason why we see chronic numbers of suicide. I think that's the reason why we see chronic numbers of Black children smoking, doing hard drugs, cigarettes, because you don't have your family investing in you the way they used to. And at the same time, they're selling you a steady diet that suggests that having things is what make you happy as opposed to having meaningful people in your life. So those will be my 5 tips for parents today.
Thank you so much for that. I would like to share with anybody who's listening on Facebook or listening live on IntellectualRadio.com. So please send your comments to me via Facebook for today. It's not very often that I get somebody like Dr. Johnson on who has such a wealth of knowledge, and I want him to get as much out as he can. So if you have a question, I'll be happy to ask him. Just send it to me via Facebook or on in the text. Time we want to pause for just a quick announcements. Go ahead, Mosa. Stop playing with each other.
Thanks for listening to Thanks for listening to Sipping Tea with B on IntellectualRadio.com. Our show is live every Sunday at 12 noon Central. This show is a constructive response to white supremacy, which is racism. We want everyone free. Today's show is sponsored by Benito's Sets Homemade Things. Delicious, where you can get delicious cakes, scrumptious cookies, and colorful hats and scarves. You can call in at 708-223-8953. 708-223-8953. That's 708-223-8953. Back to our show.
Okay, so Dr. Johnson, that's so we had several people who wanted to call in. I don't know what kind of questions they may have had, but if I click over to answer those questions, then I won't be able to keep talking with you. I'd have to put you on hold. So that's the reason why I'm asking for people to please, if you would, please text your comments or questions for today. Dr. Johnson, is there anything else that you would like to say at this time?
I would like to let people know that we will be taking our 5th annual Dr. Umar tour to Africa next summer, last week of July, first week of August. We've done 4 tours in the consecutive previous 4 years. Last year, we were in Ghana, Togo, and Benin. We actually managed to do 3 countries instead of 2. And we're looking at Egypt or Kemet, and we're looking at Ethiopia as well as Kenya for summer of 2018. So for folks who are interested in traveling to Africa with Dr. Umarjohnson, I should have that information by the time I arrive in Chicago for the Kwanzaa lecture at the Harold Washington Cultural Center, So the Africa trip, also the Black boy and girl college tour. Okay, we will be doing that again, second annual tour, first 2 weeks in July, where we take our young people to many of the major colleges on the East Coast. We visit Hampton and Howard, Spelman, Cheney, Lincoln, Norfolk State, and so many Coppin, and so many other black HBCUs on the Eastern Seaboard. And then in addition to that, take the children to a lot of notable places as it relates to the African experience in America. So we take them to the Malcolm and Betty Shabazz Center. We take them to the Audubon Ballroom where Brother Malcolm was murdered. We take them to Harriet Tubman's grave. We take them to Dr. Ben's grave site. We go to Benjamin Banneker's home. We visit the Nat Turner Trail, which is where I'm actually traveling to Philadelphia from now. So there's just a lot that they can get to see tour. And we're hoping that a lot of parents will consider sending their children.
So if somebody wants to send their child on that tour, what are the age ranges, and how would they get in touch with you, or, say they want to do it? What's the next step?
The age range is 11 to 17. It's 11 to 17. And it's boys and girls. It is overnight, consecutive, no break, but the parents get a break. And it costs approximately $2,000, but we're going to do a fundraiser to try to raise the money. They won't have to come out of pocket too much themselves.
And when is that again? Or have you selected a date for that?
First 2 weeks in July.
Okay, first 2 weeks in July, you can go on a college tour. Your child has to be between 11 and 17, 11. And, okay, boys, girls.
And if people want information, they can contact me through the website, drumarjohnson.com. They can also call 844-4-Dr. Umar. So that's 844-4-UMAR. And they can also text me on my cell phone, which I don't mind, at 215-989-9858, 215-989-9858.
Okay, listen, I have another question. I have an 11-year-old son, and I'm hoping that one day he will grow up to be a warrior like you, or a lot of our other brothers who are making good choices. And so you have this idea, this concept for a school. I would love to be able to put my son in your school. So I want you to answer 2 questions for me at the same time. Any updates you have on your school, and also what would parents have to do to, and I know you answered the question of how to help them be more motivated in learning, but would your answer to that be any different if you want him to be a very disciplined warrior?
I would say that, well, firstly, with the school, the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy, I'm really hoping to have a location by New Year's Day. That's my goal. We may run a little after that if other schools become available that I need to take a look at before I can make a final decision. There's a school in Detroit that's weighing heavy on me right now. It's a little pricey. It's a little out of our league, but they are willing to work with me in terms of a payment arrangement there. There's a couple schools in Chicago that I'm trying to get access to take a look at. There's one in Wilmington, Delaware that I have to get inspected to see what it would cost to bring it up to code because it was recently vandalized. It was a former charter school that's perfect. It was in perfect condition, but they did not secure the building well. And as a result of that, people broke in and vandalized it while they were looking for copper. And so as I begin the process of elimination, the pickings are not as good as I originally thought they would be. So I'm saying that to say that anyone listening to today's conversation, if they know of any schools that are available where they live, anywhere where they live, I'm asking that they take a picture of that school, take a picture of the contact information, the phone number or the email address, and text that to me or email that to me because I am still looking for schools right now. I want to keep looking all the way up until New Year's Day, at which time I make my decision. I want to get started. We've been raising money for 3 years. We've raised $700,000, which is $250,000. We wish we had more, but we do have enough to do something with. And so, we're just at the point where we're ready to cross the finish line to find that school. And when people ask FDMG different from other schools, I would say the first thing that's going to make the school different is the fact that it is going to be based off of revolutionary Pan-African nationalist principles and international economics, which is to say that it will be an unapologetically African institution. We are not multicultural in any way, shape, or form. And on top of that, we will teach our young men and ultimately girls as well, when we open up the female academy, that building your own business and making your own economic opportunity is what is going to ultimately make you successful in life, not necessarily having a college degree. You can get the college degree. Some of you will want to major in careers that require a college degree. But for the rest of you, we want you to know that there is a life of success that doesn't require you going into debt to a college or university. So international economics is going to look at all the different ways that people make money in America without a higher education. We're going to look at international investing. We're going to look at real estate. We're going to look at business. We're going to look at the stock market. We're going to look at all the ways that people get rich, and we're going to study them. We're going to study the lives of people who became rich without a college education, to see how they did it and to see how our young people could do the same. And when we speak of richness, we're not talking about a materialistic richness. We're talking about having wealth so that we can in turn invest in our community and help improve the lives of our Black people, as opposed to a westernized Eurocentric version of capitalism where you're considered a success just because you're doing well, even though your community is struggling. Our definition of success is only success when all of us are doing well, not just a few of us. So that's one thing that sets us apart. The other thing that sets us apart will be our agricultural curriculum. We're going to teach the children the science of the soil. We're going to take it back to the days of Dr. George Washington Carver, where they get their hands dirty, where they get down in the mud, understand seeds and how they germinate, and when to plant, when not to plant, when to reap your harvest. I want them to know how to grow their own food. In addition to that, the economic curriculum will deal with how to do your own taxes, how to invest. So they will be investing as young people in penny stocks. We want to get them comfortable with using money, learning how to handle money, learning how to invest money, and understanding that having power is not a sin. One of the happened to Black people as a result of religion is we've been taught by the church and the mosque, directly and indirectly, that having money is sinful. You're not supposed to have money. Rich people are evil. Poor people are blessed. Nothing could be further from the truth. When you don't have the resources needed to take care of your life and your family, you resort to crime. You resort to sin. So being broke is not a blessing. Being broke will lead to sin. Okay. Whereas having wealth can actually lead to blessings because you're in a position to better help other people. And then I would also say that, not to sound vain at all, but I think an additional benefit or blessing of the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy is the fact that it will have me there. I believe that I'm very unique in my ability to reach children. I believe I have a special knack to reach young people. In fact, yesterday at the Nat Turner Trail, where we were memorializing Nat Turner on the 186th anniversary of his hanging, Mama Ya Ashante of Brooklyn, she told me that she felt that I had a very special way with children to get them to open up in ways that other people, are not. And I do believe that. And so I think me being there, I think Dr. Umarjohnson being at the school itself is going to bring an energy, a passion. It's going to bring a context. It's going to bring a certain type of an environment, and it's going to produce a certain type of a learner. So I would say that myself, as much as the curriculum, as much as the teachers, is going to be one of the reasons why I believe that we'll be blessed to be very successful.
I'm hearing you be so proud of yourself got me smiling. I'm sitting here sharing with my son. He's also one of those people who's very proud of himself. I remember when I first got on Facebook, I just joined a couple years ago. One thing he said to me, he said, "Mom, you should always like your stuff. If you don't like your stuff, the only like you get is from yourself. You yourself should at least like who you are." And it didn't occur to me at the time, but I think that that's one of the things that we need to do as a people is to know and recognize our strengths and put our strengths forward. And I think you do that very well. Question from somebody on Facebook who said that he was listening to you the other day, and you said that 95% of what we learn is from white universities or white institutions. And so his question to you is, how should we gauge the percentage of truth then from when we receive statistics such as those?
Well, Western science is designed to promote the Western agenda. And so much of what we learn in the universities masquerading as science and fact is nothing more than belief, custom, ritual, and propaganda. And so it is important that as we learn at these various universities that we make sure we undergo our own corrective education to reverse the effects of the misinformation that we have been given. I think we often underestimate to what extent we are consciously and unconsciously negatively handicapped and impacted by the lessons that we learn in college. And one of the reasons why these lessons, these bits of misinformation are so powerful is because we're not told all the time that this is only theory. We're told that this is fact. And so when you're told that it is a fact that white kids are more intelligent than black folks, if you're told it's a fact, slavery, black folks would still be backward, people living in Africa. When you're told that these are facts as opposed to opinions, they crystallize in your consciousness as facts and you begin to live them out. As a man is taught, so it's his thought. So we have to be very careful about what we allow to be planted in the soil of our minds, because what is planted must bring forth. What is planted must absolutely bring forth. And so we have to do a better job of guarding our consciousness from information that is hazardous to our psychological health. Too often our children are exposed to information in the schools that is hazardous to their psychological health. We as Black people in general are exposed to information about ourselves that is absolutely hazardous to our psychological health. It's amazing some of the things that are said about Black people. If you said them about any other people, it would literally trigger a civil war. It would trigger a massive rebellion instantaneously. Some of the disrespectful suggestions that are made about us as a people. So you have the psychological effects of miseducation. You obviously have the economic effects of miseducation, i.e. not being taught how to an employable job. Then you have the political effects of miseducation, because the education that we get prevents us from being able to take political and economic control of our destiny. If you think about it, all through high school, all through college, all through graduate school, you don't get a single course on how to build political and economic power. It's not there. You see, and because we're not taught that, we are always behind all the other cultures who teach it. Whether they teach it in school, whether they teach it in the community, it gets taught. The Black community is the only place where young people are not taught how to build political and economic power for their community. And then another weakness we have is that we're handcuffed into multiculturalism. The Black community is the only community that is not allowed to be alone, to do something for itself. You're not allowed. If you do anything just for Black people, you're a racist. Jews do stuff just for Jews all day long. Nobody says anything. Mexicans do things for Mexicans all day long. Nobody says anything. Every other culture is allowed to have space and time to themselves and for themselves except us. People say, hey, we need to do this for ourselves. It's just Black. You're a racist, you're a bigot, you're this, you're that. Absolutely nonsense. And I think we need to stop listening to what the outside world says. I think we need to start listening to what we say. Okay. And I think we have to be unapologetic as to how people are going to react to the things that need to be said and the things that need to be done. Because as it is right now, we're in the 11th hour. We're clearly behind the 8 ball. And it amazes me how people that are marked for extermination are still trying to justify why they are fighting back against that extermination. If you do not have to explain why you cursed at a thief, you do not have to explain why you punched a rapist in the face. Those are natural reactions to oppression and violence. Well, Black people are dealing with that and more on a daily basis. So we should never, ever have to explain why we do what we do, because everything we do out of a reaction to oppression and racism, that if any other people had to face, they would deal with it the exact same way.
Okay. Because we're oppressed, because we experience a lot of hardship, we absolutely are duty bound, like Dr. Neely Fuller says. Well, not doctor, but Neely Fuller Jr. We are duty bound to be suspicious of any information that comes to us, especially from a, I don't know where that's coming from. Oh, okay. Time. Well,
Thanks for listening to Sipping TV on IntellectualRadio.com. Our show is live every day, every Sunday at 12 noon Central. Our show is live every Sunday at 12 noon Central. This show is a constructive response to white supremacy, which is racism. We want to see everyone free. Today's show is sponsored by Benita's Homemade Things, where you can get scrumptious cakes, delicious cookies, and colorful hats and scarves. You can call in live at 708-223-8953. 708-223-8953. Now back to our show.
All right, Dr. Umar, that's my son, Dante Moses. And he is, I'm trying to pull him into this with me and teach him how several different skill sets. And so it is his responsibility every 15 minutes to remind the people of who we are, station announcements, and that we are on Intellectual Radio and who's doing the show and that kind of thing. He's already got the little script memorized, but then when he recites it, and he recites it really, really fast. And so I printed it out for him, and then now he's reading it, and now he's reading it really slow. So I'm working with him. I have to keep working with him on talking into the mic, because he will always move back, and then I have to say repeat, that kind of thing. But anyway, we're working on it, right, Moses?
No.
So back to our show. So, Dr. Johnson, thank you so much again for all of your information. I got your book posted up, and we got a picture of you back here. If you ever get a chance to check it out on Facebook or YouTube. I know there were several people all excited and wanting to call in, and I apologize again for that. It's just the way the system is set up right now. Are there any other additional last words, things that you might want to say? We have about 15 more minutes to talk, which can be a lot of time. The problem is I don't really have a lot of questions, because I just adore you so much, and like almost any time you've ever said anything to me or I've heard you speak, I always just listen and say, that's always the feeling that I get whenever you're talking.
Well, I would say that one thing, and again, we want to remind everyone that Dr. Umarjohnson will be back in Chicago at the Harold Washington Cultural Center on Tuesday, December the 26th, which is the first day of Kwanzaa. It's a 6 p.m. program. All children 17 and younger are free. All children 17 and younger are free. All elders 65 and older are also free to Dr. Umar's lecture on 26 at the Harold Washington Cultural Center. Everyone between the age of 18 and 64.
you would need to get tickets, and you can get those tickets at drumarjohnson.eventbrite.com. Online tickets will be $20. Online tickets will be $20. Tickets at the door will be $30. So you are encouraged to get your tickets online because they will only be $20, but at the door they will be $30. The link is not active yet. I will make sure the link is active by tomorrow. Tickets at drumarjohnson.eventbrite.com. One thing I wanted to say is I think that Black parents should maximize the opportunity to use all of the social events taking place in American culture today to teach their children about racism, to teach their children about racial awareness, to teach their children about race pride, and to teach their children about knowing who they are within their own race. I think there's so much going on today that almost every day a parent needs to sit down and have a conversation with their child about what's going on in the world. So, for example, the NFL protest, that's a very good conversation. I really hope our social studies teachers and history teachers and civics teachers and government course teachers are teaching our young people, at least engaging them in conversation, the NFL protest, because you have the intersection of public opinion, systematic racism, of the First Amendment, and public opinion on whether or not athletes have a right to protest. And of course they do. But what you also see is how the NFL is basically dictating to Black athletes how they can respond to racism against their own people. I don't think we've seen this since the 1960s, where a corporation seeks to silence all of its public employees against speaking out against racial injustice. It is absolutely historic what is going on. It is trifling. It is unfortunate. It is unjust. But I think what is even more trifling, unfortunate, and unjust is how we see so many Black athletes, instead of pushing back against racism, instead of standing up to proclaim their rights, many of them are cowing down and bowing down to the demands of the owners of the NFL teams. When I look at Shaquille O'Neal and what he had to say, when I look at Deion Sanders, what he had to say, when I look at Jalen Rose, Stephen A. Smith, of course, Ray Lewis, and I'm in Baltimore right now at this moment, ironically, but Ray Lewis, formerly of the Baltimore Ravens, he's probably the most egregious example of how far tuned themselves in order to be accepted by white folks. But it is absolutely disheartening as a Black man to see so many Black men defend the status quo, defend white racism, turn their back not only on Colin Kaepernick, but turn their backs on all of us. Speak up for Colin Kaepernick, then what you're in essence doing is sitting down and turning your back that so many Black people are being killed, unarmed and defenseless, by white police. And the fact that you don't say nothing about that, you will condemn him for taking a knee. You will condemn him for not standing for a national anthem that was written by a slave-supporting, slave-owning racist. You will condemn him for not honoring that, but you haven't once used your platform to condemn the police for unjustifiably taking the lives of Black people. So I think this is lesson time. This is time when parents need to engage our sons and daughters and say, what do you think about that? Do you think these athletes should still be considered heroes in the community when they take social positions that are against the best interests of Black people? These conversations need to be had, because I think one of the most important lessons that have come out of the NFL protest is the fact that it has revealed to us very obviously and undisputedly that Black athletes and Black entertainers do not identify with the Black community, and they definitely do not speak for the Black community. And at the end of the day, most of them will not stand for the Black community. They may look like us, they may talk like us, they may have the swag, the language, the culture, they may participate in it, they might help create the art and drive the content of the various art forms that we created. But at the end of the day, when the white power structure decides to take a stand against Black people, our singers, our actors, our athletes, our football players, our basketball players, they will not side with us. Shaquille O'Neal has made that clear. Ray Lewis has made that clear. Jalen Rose has made that clear. So many other athletes have made that clear. That we believe that under all costs, respect the flag and respect the anthem, even when it doesn't respect us. And I think that is the conversation that needs to be had, because our boys have no business looking up to these athletes. They have no business looking up to these rappers if these rappers are not going to stand for us, for them.
Exactly. And that brings to point the Bob McNair, one of the Texans owners, who said, he said, we can't let the inmates run the prison. And Neely Fuller says, often, like I hear him say this repeatedly on his radio broadcast, and that the white supremacy is sort of like the analogy that he uses, a prison system, and that all non-white people are basically inmates in the prison system, or we're all prisoners of war. And here, this guy, he probably's never even heard of Neely Fuller, or maybe he has, who knows, but he used the same analogy as, I'm the warden and you're just an inmate in my camp. So he makes that comment. Troy Vincent, he stood up and said, hey, I'm offended by that. But you're absolutely right. The other thing that I wanted to share about the Colin Kaepernick issue is that Dr. Claude Anderson, he suggested that anytime we're responding to that, is that we say, hey, Black people out of all people on earth are, especially in the United States, are the most patriotic of everybody else, because we have where white folks were running from the draft, we stood up as our Black man stood up to say, hey, I'll fight in it. So we were 200,000 saying, hey, I'll fight in something, even though a lot of them were slaves, whereas 100,000 of them were running away. Okay, I really appreciate it. One last question before we go. Do you feel like race pride is more important than religion? And I need you to say that in like I want you to talk on that, but maybe just a couple minutes, because we only got about 5 minutes.
Yes, race pride is without question more important than religion, because religion is political conditioner. Religion softens Black people's stances on issues that we need to be firmly for or firmly against. You know, religion, people who hate you. Religion teaches you to turn the other cheek against people who are trying to kill you. Religion does not make you a warrior. Religion is not for the warriors. Okay, even when you study religious states historically, the warriors were often separated from the dogma of the religion, even though it was their responsibility to defend the religion. They were separated from the dogma, because you cannot win a war with the type of rhetoric that is taught in church. You cannot win a war that way. So, you know, we will never win this as long as the church on Sunday, and today is Sunday, so all across America, Black preachers are taking Black people's money and at the same time telling them that they don't need to be concerned about their future because it's in God's hands. That's the most dangerous way you can teach. That's one of the most dangerous lessons you can teach an oppressed person. Okay, now on the flip side, race pride. Okay, when you have that pride and that confidence and unshakable, unapologetic knowledge of self and what you deserve and what you are entitled to, you will break down the walls of anything that tries to keep you out. You will destroy any opposition in your way, because your life in your eyes, not your enemy's eyes, but because your life in your eyes is so valuable, you will not accept any treatment that is less than what you consider to be dignified. So we're not there yet. The reason we can still watch the NFL after what they've done to Kaepernick, the reason we can still say we love the police after all the killings of Black folks, the reason we can still say I'm proud to be an American. Look at the 400 years of hell Black people have caught under the British North American colonies. 400 years of rape, dehumanization, mass incarceration, genocide, diseases, miseducation, and you still have Black people saying after all of that, to be an American. That is not pride in yourself. That is not dignity. There is no people on earth who will ever be treated like that, never receive an apology, never receive a reparation for it. And the people responsible for the treatment are still interested in administering the same type of treatment. You will never see another people do that to be self-respecting people. You cannot be proud to be an American if you're black and consider yourself to be a person of pride and integrity. It's absolutely contradictory. What America has done to black people absolutely contradicts any form of pride, justice, or decency that you should expect from a person. But again, when you're handicapped into multiculturalism, where you're made to feel that you cannot rise unless your oppressor gives you a hand up, you will always be looking for a handout. And that's where we are as a people. We have to change the consciousness of the children in order to change the trajectory of our future.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson. We got to go. I'll holler at you later. Okay, brother? Peace out.
All right. Take care now.
Okay, that's the end. We are wrapping up. Thank you so much for joining in. Talk to you all later. So catch us next Sunday, 12 noon time, for another interesting conversation. Good night.
Benita, I want you to say why you wanted to rear me as a black person and not a biracial person.
The world sees my family as black. The world sees all interracial people as black. In order for you to survive with credibility and expertise, you need to understand that the world sees you as black, so you must get used to that definition because it's going to be carried with you wherever you go. When people see other people, the first thing they see is color.